Okay, so one of my favorite artists growing up was Dashboard Confessional. And they have a song that starts out with this line: Hope dangles on a string. And I'm a huge fan of the word hope. I think hope is what many of us are lacking now. And so for me, I want to be someone that is constantly giving hope to others, enabling people to feel hopeful. And as an English teacher and a librarian, here's one of the things that I think is really important for me to offer hope to young people. And that is to give them the opportunity to read what they want. Now, I've talked about this before in the sense of like that we should not gatekeep and say this is good literature and this is not good literature, but it goes even beyond that. Now, my son has phenomenal teachers, amazing teachers. He's a second grader, and he has really great teachers. This morning, my son woke up really early. It's like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I hear him eating pretzels in the kitchen. So I go in there and I sit down with him and we start talking. And we're talking about school. Now, right now, he is obsessed with math, which is something I have a hard time relating to because I don't care much for math. It's not my favorite subject. It's always been my least favorite. But he's learning how to multiply, and he is fascinated by that. He's also fascinated with time. And so I listened to him talk about that for a long time, and then he asked me if my students do math. And I said, yes, they're doing a little bit more complicated math than he's doing. But I said, I don't really talk to them about their math because I'm an English teacher, so we do reading and writing. And my son said something that broke my heart, which is that his least favorite time is independent reading time. Now, my son actually loves to read, like reads all the time. Especially, he is deeply obsessed with Calvin and Hobbes, and he loves Bone. He loves these graphic novels. And I asked him why he doesn't like, I said, isn't independent reading time great because you get to choose the book that you want to read? And he said, well, kind of. We have our book box and we have to pick a book out of our book box. And so first of all, let me say that I recognize that teachers have a finite number of resources. And the fact that each student has their own book box is remarkable. But here's what Jeremiah has said. He said that one of his friends has this specific book in his book box, and he really wants to read those books that are in his friend's book box. But he can only read the books that are in his book box. And he's a fast reader, so chances are he's read a fair amount of the books in his book box. And to me, that was just a reminder, especially in elementary school. And again, I'm a secondary teacher, so all love and grace to those elementary school teachers who are doing the Lord's work that I, have not done. But I want my son to be able to read what he wants to read. I want him to read all the time. I want him to fall in love with reading. And I even have to question my own motives in that. Like, what am I allowing him and not allowing him to read? So, for instance, we are not a household that partakes in horror. We don't really like horror movies, not really fans of horror stuff. But what I fell in love with reading to was horror books. When I was a kid, I loved reading R.L. Stine's Fear Street series and Christopher Pike's books and Stephen King and the Are You Afraid of the... No, not Are You Afraid of the Dark. That was a TV show that I loved watching. But the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark books. And I loved those books. I read them so many times. I started reading by reading the Alfred Hitchcock and the Three Investigators series. And while I do have a responsibility to filter what my kids read, I have to help them to know what's appropriate for them because I don't want my son to read scary stories and then have a hard time falling asleep. I also have to recognize that if these are books that teach him to fall in love with reading, did they ruin me? I have to question these things. I have to balance them. And sometimes it is a hard decision. And I'm not always sure I made the right one. So what's the point of this video? 4 minutes and 40 seconds in, what am I trying to say? I guess what I'm trying to say is that every day, each and every one of us that interacts with kids, children, all the way up to teens, we have to question what things are we doing that are helping kids to read more And what things are we doing that are making them like reading less? If you're a teacher, if you're a librarian, even if you're a parent, let's try and make steps to get kids to fall in love with reading. It's definitely something that's going to benefit them in the future.